Oh my word, I cannot believe I allowed this to happen. Craft room organization sure can be a daunting journey, can't it? Well, I'm here today to share my tips as well as my struggles as I have been going on that same journey. So let's get into today's video.
Hello and welcome to CreArtive by Nature. My name is Donna.
So my intent was to have this particular video done quite a while ago, but life happens. I took a break to be with my kids during spring break, and I had planned on getting everything put together during that time. Well, needless to say, we all ended up getting sick with that dreaded, you-know-what, illness. So I just didn't have it in me to get it all done. Life happens and we get put behind. We just have to learn to be okay with that. And I admit, I struggle with that. And I'm sure many of you do from time to time as well. So this leads me into tip number one, and that is to be patient and kind and loving to yourself during this journey. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was our craft room. We all have slightly different journeys when it comes to our craft room organization, but I am hoping that these few tips and also knowledge in what I struggle with is going to help all of you to get through your journey. So some of these tips are going to sound kind of cliche and might be repetitive, as you may have heard others say these same tips, but I am here to tell you that they actually do work. This leads me into my first struggle, and that is I am not a naturally organized person. I really don't like to do it, but it's necessary. It's necessary with everything. If you don't get yourself at least somewhat organized, you end up losing important things, or you end up overspending because you can't find that one particular item that you're looking for. So this really comes back to being kind to yourself and patient, and just to know that we are all in this together. So tip number two is to take your time. I wanted to get this done in a real hurry, but I just couldn't. Life ended up happening. So it's okay if it takes you a really long time. Take maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe even 20 or half an hour, however much time you can allot yourself to get something done. Set the timer. I have done this quite a few times. Or another thing I can do is just take one bag, one box, one drawer, one basket, whatever it is I can get done. So at least I've got some momentum happening, whatever works for you. So I think another tip that I haven't heard too many people say is allow your space to evolve. Our interests change, our spaces change, and our spaces need to adapt to that. So I think craft room organization is always going to be changing depending on what is happening in your life, what you're interested in, all of those other things that might affect how your space functions for you. So these next few tips are very helpful, and I'm going to tell you these are tips that I actually was fighting against, or originally they didn't make sense, or they didn't really come to me naturally. So I actually had learned a lot from Noreen, the crafty organizer. She gives some amazing tips for craft room organization, and the best part, she's a crafter. So I will have her channel linked down below in case you want to go and check out all the tips and tricks she has. So one thing I had learned from her, and I don't know why I never thought of this before, but it's just to group like items together. Wow, like, hello, of course that's gonna work. It's gonna work great. I used to have things scattered all over the place, and I had tried to keep things grouped in, say, stations, but I just don't have the space for that. So for me, keeping like items together works really well. Example would be I keep all my paints in one spot, as well as all my art supplies. So example within that would be I've got all my craft paints as well as my art acrylic paints, but then I also have markers that I use for paper crafting or art journaling or even just art making. I have my spray paints there, paint brushes, as well as my artist papers. I had my artist papers stored in another spot for a long time and it did not work. I was all over the place. This works so much better. Another thing I had done was keep all my frames together with my canvases, and I have a section with just all my sewing supplies. I've got a tower with tools, a setup with all the embellishments I can use within my craft space, like from stickers to wax seals, from ribbon to trim and strings. All of that kind of stuff is in one section. So one thing I think we all need to remember is to do what's going to work for you. We all have different spaces. We all have different crafting interests. I myself am into a lot of different arts and crafts, so I have got lots of different sections with different supplies. So really just think about how you can utilize your space and organize it in a way that's going to make sense to your flow. This took me a long time. I have been seriously crafting probably for about 13 years. I've always been a creative person, but I had first set up a craft room space in our basement, and it was in a dungy little corner. It was so dark, but it got me through a really tough time in my life. So I just made do with what I had, but things were a scattered mess. So once I decided that I wanted to move into this new section of the unfinished basement, I created myself a room, and I really wanted to get this organized, but again, it was just a hot mess all the time. Well, once I finally just realized that keeping like items would be so much handier, it really has helped. So I highly recommend doing that. If keeping like items doesn't work, then set up some workstations if you have the space to do so. So I have been sorting and I have been purging, trying to make room for all my supplies, and also trying to get rid of what I'm not interested anymore, or say the supply is old and dried out and needs to go in the trash. So that leads me into my next tip, and that is to ask yourself some really important questions as you are sorting and purging through your supplies. So I have a hard time letting things go. I really do. Especially if things are handed down to me for free from, say, a loved one or what have you. What I started to do was ask myself, first off, do I even love it anymore? If I don't love it anymore, then I would go to the question right off the bat, can somebody else use it? Of course, somebody could totally put this to better use. So I would either give it to a friend or I would give it to a thrift store. We have 2 charity shops here where I live, and I love to be able to give back to my community in that way. So I like to donate whenever I can. If I loved it, the next question I would ask myself is, am I even going to be able to use this in my lifetime, even if I still love it? Well, let me tell you, I had a ton of yarn. I had inherited a whole bunch of yarn from my grandma. She was into knitting Afghans, and I was at the time into weaving. So I'm like, yes, give me all the yarn you've got. Well, I did not have room for all that yarn. And then 2, I started collecting from the thrift stores and garage sales. So I stopped getting yarn. But as I was sorting through it all, I would say, Kate, do I love it anymore? Some of it, no, not at all, not anymore. I got past some of my phases say I had a love for orange. I don't need that much orange yarn, so I donated it. But there were some yarns I absolutely loved, but there was just too much there for me to use. So what I ended up doing was unraveling some of it and putting it onto a cardboard piece, so at least I had some of it to use, and then I ended up donating the rest. Little secret here though, my oldest actually ended up grabbing those 2 balls of yarn, and she's into crocheting right now, and she fell in love with those, so she snuck them away. I said, you can have them, but I don't want to see them back in my craft room. So she's got those tucked away in her room. We really need to ask ourselves those important questions, and that will just help to clear out the abundance. I know I have a lot. Oh my word, I cannot believe I allowed this to happen. All of this ribbon and trim. I don't need all of that. I can't use all of that. I don't even love all of it. What have I done? I don't know why I did this. Well, I actually kind of do know why. That leads me into another struggle. I was into watching haul videos, and I would see other people purchase things, share things, or when it was into the DIY and crafting world, I would see people using new supplies and products. I'm like, oh, I have to have it. Well, I would go and I would buy, and I would get too much and I wouldn't use it, or I wouldn't have the room for it. I'm like, Donna, stop. Stop already. So I am going through a whole bunch of ribbon and trim now because of my deep down desire to take advantage of this great deal that my local dollar stores had, and that was to get those ribbon and trim packs. You can get them at Michael's as well, but they sell them for a bit more. Well, my stores, some of them were selling them for $1.75, or they were selling them for even just $2.25. That was an amazing deal. But what am I going to do with all of this? What? I really don't need it. I cannot believe I did that. Anyways, I'm not here to beat myself up. I had decided that I would cut back on spending. I really want to use what I already have. So if you've been watching my videos, you may have noticed that I have said that a few times, that I'm just pulling from my stash, using from my stash, using what I already have to create something, so I can go through my supplies, and then when I get to it again and I need to restock, I'm only going to get what I really, really love to use. And by doing this, I'm learning what I love to use. I don't want this to be overwhelming and like, Donna, I don't know if I can do that. It may work for you. I'm here to tell you, it really is truly a big struggle for me as well. I had read through your comments throughout my craft room series, and I wanted you to know I've been there. I really have. And I still struggle with a lot. So you're not alone. You really are not alone. So this next tip is one that I struggled with. And I was fighting against, and I don't know why I was fighting. I think it was because of the amount of time I knew it was going to take to do. And that's to label. So simple, so easy. It does take time to label. But let me tell you, what a time saver between organizing things into like items and labeling. It has really saved me time. I was wanting to make my space a more efficient workspace so I can bring better content to all of you. And I was wasting so much time trying to find the supplies that I needed to create some of these projects that I had in mind. So I'm like, that's it. You got to label. Come on, girl. I did my labels 3 ways: printing them out on my printer, I did some that were just really plain and basic, as well as some color-coded ones. And this worked really well. I really like that. I'm gonna have the video for that linked in my craft room organization series playlist. I will have that in my description box, as well as at the end of this video for you to check out all of that crafty goodness. And then the next way was using my Cricut Joy. Now, I have been wanting to try out my Cricut Joy to make labels for a while, so I'm like, well, this is the perfect opportunity. It worked really, really well. I loved it. It was so easy, and you can customize it the way you want. It is a great resource if you have that, or even any of your Cricut machines or die cutting machines that does writing. But if you have neither Cricut Joy or you don't have a printer, then just do them by hand. I have done some of mine by hand as well, and I use a variety of tags. You can even use label stickers. You can get those at Dollar Tree. They even have some really pretty ones, and just handwrite it. Now, I really don't like my handwriting or printing. It looks like chicken scratch to me. But sometimes you just have to say, doesn't matter, we're just here to get the job done. So I just went for it. I mixed up all my labels just to show you that there is a variety. So this was a struggle that I have noticed all of you having, and you were appreciating what I was sharing as far as furniture and storage units or containers to use within your craft space. No IKEA? No problem. I don't have an IKEA in my area. It is about 4 or 5 hour drive for me, and I am not about to pay for shipping to get some storage units. So I took advantage of the fact that I have a Walmart near me, a Home Depot. Here in Canada, we have a store called Canadian Tire. They've got tons of great storage there. But I also hit up Facebook Marketplace. You can find lots of furniture pieces on there. And I also went to garage sales, the thrift stores, and I even took advantage of hand-me-downs. I have been given a few pieces in this room for free from family. Just use whatever you can get your hands on and what's affordable from you. I even took some pieces from within our own home and repurposed them as well. So this comes to my next point and tip. Don't be afraid to mix things up. I have got a real eclectic mix of textures and colors and types of furniture that I have in this space, but yet it still kind of works for me, so I'm okay with that. I've got bookcases, I've got some night tables that are stacked on each other, I've got a chest of drawers, I've got cube shelving, I've got file folder holders, you name it, I've got it in here as well. I like to mix up my storage containers. Dollar Tree, here in Canada we have Dollarama. I know down in the United States you've got Dollar General or Family Dollar. I'm sorry, I can't remember. We all have different resources for storage containers. I know not everybody likes to use plastic. If you don't, that's okay. Hit up your thrift stores or Target I know has got some amazing storage pieces. I mixed up both plastic as well as some natural things that I found from the thrift store. Plastic works for me and I'm okay with using that. But also I want you to look at some other pieces within the dollar stores or even Walmart or wherever and look at things differently. Dollar Tree has these wire shelves that you can use in cupboards. Well, these work great in these cube shelves. And then another trick I have for you and tip, I have these rectangular baskets. And then I discovered that the plate racks from Dollar Tree fit inside really well if I arrange them properly. And I used zip ties to anchor them down to the baskets. Now I've had these baskets for probably 20 years. Yeah, probably for about 20 years now. And they're still holding up. And I like to store my fabric in here, but it was overflowing and I couldn't see what I had. And then I took my pieces of fabric, I wrapped it around a piece of cardboard to keep them nice and sturdy, and then slipped those into some Ziploc bags. And these fit really well in between those plate rack slots that we have created. Works really well. So when you're out and about, kind of think about how you can reuse something from your kitchen section or wherever, and think about how you can use it in your craft space. Another thing I love to do is thrift wood pieces and baskets and things like that from the thrift stores. And I've got a selection over here in my embellishment area, and I think it looks really, really great. So as you can see, things are really mishmashed in this room, but it still works. It works for me. That leads me into my next tip, and that is you can create unity by, say, color or texture or patterns or just a theme even. Again, do what works for you. Personalize your space, make it feel warm and inviting, make it feel like a place that you can come and retreat to. I like to do that. It's something that's really important to me. So this brings me to my last struggle. I have a really hard time cleaning up after myself. I've got it all nicely organized, and do you think I'm putting things back where they belong when I'm done? No, I'm not. I just let it all explode in front of me. I don't know why. I should get into the habit of cleaning up when I'm done, so then I'm ready to go when I want to work on my next project for all of you. It sure would speed up the process. No, instead I'm rushing and just kind of quickly cleaning things up before I press record, and it's really inefficient for me. Now, if you're not recording videos, then I honestly think just do whatever works for you. But yeah, cleaning up after myself is a real struggle. So I know some of you, again, in the comments had said that you struggle with space. You don't have the space to store things. So I had kind of come up with a few ideas. I thought, you know, I have got a cupboard that's not being used for anything specific anymore in my kitchen, and it's right beside my dishwasher. I know when the kids were little, I stored their craft supplies in there. I also have this shelf, and I would store some supplies here. You could use just a basket and keep some supplies and tuck it away somewhere. I know this can be a really big struggle. So just see where you are maybe able to carve some space out in a drawer, in a cupboard, in a basket. This was my husband's grandma's sewing notions wood case, and I thought it would be great to store some craft supplies in here. So I had some stuff upstairs to use. You can also use suitcases. I have been given these suitcases by family. I also have these file totes or a briefcase. Just really try to think outside of the box on how you can store some craft supplies to use wherever you can within your home. So I will be having my full craft room tour coming up soon. There's just a few last minute finishing touches, such as my backdrop that I wanted to take care of, as well as finishing with some labeling that I need to do, but stay tuned for that. If you want to be notified, then tap on the subscribe button, and then if you tap on the bell, you'll want to tap on the bell that says notify all, so then you will get the notification that I have uploaded that video for your viewing pleasure. So another thing I feel all of you should know is that this space is not my only space. I do have another section in the basement where I store all my seasonal stuff like Christmas and Thanksgiving or fall, and as well as my bulkier items. So I keep a lot of my thrifted finds in there, and then I've got big totes that have got, say, some stuffing in it for when I make gnomes. I also have my outdoor stuff there. So I am thankful that I have that extra space. And I know it sounds like I have a lot, and I do, but you gotta remember, this is what I do. This is my job, is creating for all of you. So I'm thankful that I have the space to store. I just need to utilize that space better. So I've got some work to do over in that section as well. I have some sorting and purging in there as well, because I can't remember what I all have, but that's going to be for another day. If you're looking for more tips and tricks on craft room organization, I've got a playlist for all of you right here. I hope you found value in what I shared. If you did, give me a thumbs up, share this video, and I'd love for you to become a part of my community. I am so thankful to all of you, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.